A very warm welcome to everyone joining us in person, who's joining us live stream, and to everyone else who will catch up with this, not today, but hopefully in the near future. We have 5 incredibly talented panelists with us today, and they've all taken time out of their busy schedules to share their experiences and expertise with us. So please, please, please get some questions ready for them and make use of their expertise and their experiences. For the eagle-eyed among us, you will notice that Marie hasn't been able to join us in person. She has COVID at the moment, but has very kindly offered to still be involved, and we're very happy to have a float-in version of her with us today. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping rules I need to run through. I know that you guys will miss these from digital platforms. We haven't had to speak about toilets or fire exits now for about 2 years, but they are important today, okay? If you need a toilet break at any point and you're not an ECS member of team, you will need a pass. They're on that little table behind us with a red pass. Please put them back on the table when you come back, otherwise there'll be a lot of people with their legs crossed for the rest of the talk. Fire exits, there's a big green little running man up on the top there, so we'll just follow that. There will also be fire marshals around, so we'll get outside nice and safely. There isn't anything scheduled today, so please take it seriously if you do hear an alarm. We also have a camera floating around, so if you are at all uncomfortable with your photos being shared post-talk, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we don't publish those. As mentioned, we have the privilege of having the wisdom of these 5 incredible women for today's talk. We have reserved 20 minutes at the end for any questions, so please keep your questions until then. If you joined us live on YouTube, you can be using the comment section to be posting your questions, and we'll be picking them up as the conversation goes on. So please feel free to use that as an avenue, but also to ask questions in person as well. We'd also like to take a moment to say to everyone affected by the events in Ukraine, we pray for a fast and peaceful end to such an unnecessary war. Global Logic stands with Ukraine and hopes you and your loved ones are safe during this time. And if you are keen to support efforts and understand ways you can help, we will share a link after the talk of things that Global Logic have aligned to, an activity that you can get involved with. So why are we all here today? We are here to talk about action for equality and making change happen in the 21st century business landscape. These topics align with one of 3 of this year's International Women's Day's themes, and also into the UN's theme of breaking the bias. My name is Eloisa Tovey, and with us today we have Flavilla Fongang. Forgive me, this is in the order of this, not in the order of the panel. Barbara Gottardi. We have Rhiannon Lawson, Diana Ottel, and Marie Drake. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to, I'm going to start with Marie Drake and just let her introduce herself, and we'll pass it all the way down so you get to know a little bit more about who you're going to be listening to today.
Yep. Hi everyone. So my name is Marie. First of all, just really want to say it's unfortunate that I couldn't be at the office. But yeah, hopefully I recover soon and properly taste my food, because my sense of taste is just gone. So anyway, I'm currently a quality engineering manager in Zoopla. I've been in the tech industry for 8 like almost 9 years now. So it's been a really roller coaster journey, and I've actually started off as a manual test consultant, and at the moment, rather than doing individual contributor, I've tried people management role, which is something that I've been enjoying, but at the same time, I still do some of the technical contribution stuff. I get involved in the testing community by via my blog and the meetups and conferences that I've spoken to about. So I mostly share resources around testing, around test automation, how we can do quality right. So if you're interested to have a look at my blog, it's mariedrake.com, and I've also done a series of workshops specifically around some modern testing tools such as Cypress or Pack for contract testing. And I think so far that's me. I'm just really excited to be part of this panel with all these amazing women here.
I'll go next. I'm not sure if this is working, but I'll use it. My name is Diana Ottel. I'm a senior delivery consultant here at ACS. My job is to help enable digital transformation for our clients and support them in building scaled automation solutions. I've been in STEM for almost a decade now and working in tech for around 6 years. And at ECS, I am also involved very actively in our diversity and inclusion team and also in our corporate environmental responsibility team. I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion, which is why I'm here. And yeah, excited to be here and speak about gender equality today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name. Does it work? Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. Okay, you do. Okay, fantastic. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Flavilla Fongang, and people know me as the enabler. So what does it mean really? So I enable tech startups and tech businesses to develop great brands for my agency, Free Colors Wool. I am the voice of Tech Brand Stock podcast, where I have conversation with most exciting tech entrepreneurs doing some amazing things, disruptor, who are not afraid to change the status quo. I'm also a keynote speaker by nature, so I love to talk about psychology. I'm obsessed to understand people's brain, so I can trick them. So I love to talk about that from a neuromarketing perspective. So you can watch some of the talk that I have on my YouTube channel. I promise I'm not a witch. And I'm also the creator of used to be called TLA Tech London Advocates Black Women in Tech, which is now has become Global Tech Advocate Black Women in Tech, where I build the bridges between talented black women and talented black girls and technology companies who want to increase their diversity and inclusion. And I think that's it. And people also know me for have a crazy idea of writing a book for COVID to help entrepreneurs. It's called 99 Strategies to Get Customers. But yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, I should have gone before this one, but no. My name is Barbara Gottardi. I'm Italian. I've lived in London for 20 years. I'm a Chief Information Officer. I've worked at HSBC for 16 years. I moved to Vanguard for a bit more of a year as a European CIO, and I've recently decided to start my own company as trying to help small fintech and other smaller organizations to really help with technology and digital transformation and help them to be more efficient. I'm extremely passionate about women in technology. There's not enough of us. I actually studied economics and then ended up in technology, so I think it's possible. And I'm a mother of 2 boys, so I'm also very much supportive of men trying to, work and support their partners. And that's why I'm really excited about talk about equality.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon, and I am the Head of Digital Standards at the Centre for Digital Public Services Wales. I've been in technology for about 6 years, and like Barbara, started in something completely different. So I studied law and have worked in policy across the public sector for about 12 years, but got into technology, as I said, 6 years ago, and I think this is where I'm going to stay. Really, really passionate, like the others, about diversity and inclusion, do lots of talks at girls' schools and at various events, and we'll probably talk about it a bit later, but have recently set up a podcast around feminism and equality called The Unfairer Sex. So I'm trying to get our message out there about how to deal with various situations, both in work and in your personal life, when it comes to equality.
So as you might have noticed there, that was a very deliberate ploy that we were going to mute 3 of them and let one speak. So you guys have to go and say hello afterwards and catch everything you might have missed. But as you can see, I'm very, very excited to have everyone here. As you again, incredibly talented, very privileged that you're all here today. We have 1 hour. We've got 4 questions to cover, right? We're going to try and get as much out of you as we can. And then those who are quick with maths will roughly 15 minutes a question. So we're going to keep it going as we can. For anyone who knows me, I'm chatty and I'm not very good at timekeeping. So I've asked someone to wink at me every now and then if I'm going over time. So if you see me wink back, it's not you guys, it's to keep me on track, okay? So without further ado, let's jump into question 1. Can each of you give us some insights about your professional and personal journey so far? And is there anything that you've experienced that you hope others joining the industry won't have to? And we're going to start with Flavilla.
I'll write a book about this. Just to give you a bit of a backstory, I am born Parisian, and people think that I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I was not. I was born in a ghetto in Paris, the part that you don't see in Emily in Paris, yeah. So yeah, so I was born in Paris, moved to London about now 20 years ago, but I never thought I'd stay that long. But it's interesting because when I left university, full of qualifications but no experience, so I worked in oil and gas. So I don't know, how did you find yourself in oil and gas? I think I was just a curious cat, and I always liked to do something different. So imagine the oil and gas industry, very, very, very male dominated, and I've learned. It's funny because I've as my first experience, it was the norm. It's interesting how you start your first experience as having more men as the norm. So I always thought that, okay, that's fine, and I would learn to navigate as the only woman in the room. Then I find myself in fashion, completely different environment. Like, whoa, okay, it's different here, and men are also different type of men. Okay, so it's fine. And then it's interesting because when I find myself in technology, and my jump to technology, just to give you a bit of a backstory, was because of my interest in working with companies who can make a very scalable impact. And when I worked in technology, I realized, no, we can't have more men. What's going on in this space? But it's interesting because my journey as a black woman, I never labeled myself as a black woman. It's interesting, I always labeled myself as an entrepreneur, and that's how I want people to see me. But I realized that it wasn't the case for everybody else. So I assumed, it's funny because I was okay people underestimating me, and I said, you know what, better I will surprise you when you think that I'm going to be here to make the coffee. I'm actually the one who's going to be leading this conversation. Always made me laugh. So I've always assumed, I always was comfortable with being underestimated, which was not something that everybody can say is okay with. But yes, so come back to the question. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but really what some of the things that I've learned is that we deal with a lot of preconceived ideas and biases, as we know. And I've been told, someone thinking they were giving me a compliment, oh, you're very intelligent for African women. Oh. Okay. So there's two ways I can react: either go straight punch him in the face, or just respond very politely and say, you know what, there's a better way of saying that, and educate them. But again, it's not my journey to educate them. But I think there's a lot of preconceived ideas in terms of what women are capable of achieving, and where we're supposed to be. But also, one thing that I've learned is that I will create my own opportunities. And if I wait for people to see my talent, I will still be sitting as an assistant manager. And that's something that I've done for myself. Not being afraid to be very vocal about what I wanted, whatever it is money, and whatever it is where I want to be next. And you know what? A bit of cheekiness has took me a long way. And I don't think that's something I'm going to stop doing. But that's for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Barbara, what's something that you've experienced that you wish others don't have to experience coming through?
So I grew up in Italy, and I went to university there, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I decided to go to Dublin. I thought I could learn English there, realized that Irish was a different language for English. And I started my life into a contact center, and again, similar to your kind of bias, I had people and family in Italy say, why did you've got university degrees, you can get called a doctor in Italy after you get a university degree, why the hell did you work in a call center? But for me, it was I needed to prove to myself that I could do something for myself without having, and I wanted to be independent, because the bad things of being a doctor in Italy, you don't get paid for the first few years of your life, so that wasn't good for me. But I think I learned what I didn't like. I learned technology. One things I learned maybe when I had my first child, and I think this has changed, and I think COVID has brought some good changes, is people was labeling me as part-time when I left at like 10 to 5 to avoid rushing the tube to go and pick up the kids. And I really fought to explain what flexible working was. And I think maybe 14 years ago, flexible working was, well, you work from home, what else do you want? And I'm hoping I can see that, not in a good way, because I think we had to have a pandemic, but I do think that people now understand what flexible working is, and it's not just working from home, it's working at times when your kid is asleep and when you can do other stuff. And it doesn't matter if you work from home or wherever you want to work from. I think maybe that's an opportunity, and I think that's what, we'll talk later maybe as well, but maternity leave and share maternity and paternity leave, I think that's a good thing, that it's much more well accepted compared to 14 and 12 years ago. So I hope people can benefit from that.
Rhiannon.
Yeah, so I think I've been quite lucky in my tech journey that I've had some really amazing people around me. I've got a lot of people that have supported me, but I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't things that have come up. So it perhaps feels a bit of a silly thing, but I think it does affect people. Um, I've had it commented on things as I've got more senior, that I should dress in a different way, and should I had someone tell me that I needed to stick to the rules when it comes to clothing, and that meant don't wear pink, don't wear flowers, don't wear big jewelry, and don't express myself. And he asked me why I would want to make things difficult for myself by wearing different things like that and not wearing a suit. And I tried to explain to him that if I did it, a white person who's relatively well educated, relatively well spoken, that it would make things easier for other people who have other, don't have the privileges that I have. I hope that I think that happens to women far more than men, and I hope that other women don't have to experience that same thing. And I think the other thing is, as a woman in tech, I often get asked to speak about being a woman in tech and not about the tech that I do. So there was a cloud event I've been leading on government cloud strategy for the last couple of years, and my colleague was asked to go, male colleague was asked to go and speak about the work we've been doing, and I was asked to go and speak about being a woman in cloud. And I said I'm happy to do that, but actually I'd also like to be speaking as well about the work I'm doing because I'm really knowledgeable in it. And I think sometimes people forget that, and forget that we can also speak about the things that we are doing.
Good answer. Would you like to add anything, Diana? And Marie, we haven't forgotten about you.
Yeah. So my journey was a bit easier, I think. I was born and raised in Romania, and I knew since I was a kid that I liked science and math and video games, so I knew what I wanted to do. Went on, studied computer science, and then just became a software engineer straight up. But I never considered, like you said, I never saw myself as a woman in tech. I never knew that was a thing, that there were fewer of us or it would be a problem, until I actually went in and faced some challenges that my male colleagues weren't facing. Stuff like being asked, why don't you wear makeup? Why don't you wear a dress? You should wear this or that more often. Things that we, I think, classify as microaggressions now. And yeah, I would hate for women to still have to deal with these things. Being talked over, especially at the beginning of my career, it doesn't happen anymore because people who know me know that I speak up. But I've then again now in my more senior years in this role, I am told that I'm authoritarian for exhibiting these qualities that men usually have, leadership qualities. They are told they're such great leaders, whereas we are told that we're authoritarian. And I've even been I've been told stop being so bitchy. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Marie, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, my journey to tech is quite similar to Diana, but I've like when I studied for my degree, I think that was sort of my first shock that there's not a lot of women, because when I entered like one of our big class, there's only a handful. Like I could count how many women there are, and that's the entire sort of like class. So it's pretty male dominated. So I've always had this misconception that I really had to do well in order to compete with all the other males, so that I can stand out, and that sort of like stick with me even until now, that I always have to work extra hard as opposed to my male counterpart. So that's, I guess, something that I don't want others to experience, because that can lead to burnout, a lot of stress, because you feel that you always have to prove something. um the other sort of experience that I've had, and I hope that we as like as companies do something better about this. And I think some other companies are doing better. And it's when I came back from maternity leave, and there was no proper place for me to pump, to in order for me to have some breast milk for my daughter during that time. When I asked the company where I can pump, they said, "Oh, you can go to the disabled toilet." And that's something that I am, going forward, more companies should be able to cater for that. And as Barbara said, like the whole flexible working movement, I think that's really important, because like we can do that in the comfort of our own home now. But yeah, those are just really the few things that really stand out. But I think if I could add just like one final thing, there's this, I guess, bias or like misconception that you really have to be super techie to work in tech, and that's not always the case. So I think that barrier is there, and women have this misconception that, oh, I really need to be super techy. I really need to learn all the tech stuff. But to be honest, most of the stuff that I've been learning now, I've been learning them on the job. So we should just raise awareness that, you don't need to be like super techy to work in tech.
That's a really great point. And I think what's really interesting here is that you all want to be here, you all want to be in tech, and I think that we're proof that women do want a place within technology, and there's just a few hurdles put into place which, again, male counterparts may not be experiencing. And as you have mentioned, this has been going on for decades. This isn't a new problem, and it's one that hasn't gone away, which is a shame. This actually moves us quite nicely onto question 2, and it's one of the reasons given for a lack of diversity within leadership is that there isn't enough diversity in the industry to start with. The argument being if there are less women in the talent pool, then by logic we should expect less in leadership. And yet statistics today show that the UK IT workforce is made up of 17% women, 5% by Asian women, 3% by black women. So yeah, only 10% of women occupy leadership roles. So there's this huge gap in between what is in the talent pool, if you did want to use that as a reason. Flowery dresses might also be a reason you don't want women up there. What steps can we be taken to help fill these gaps? And let's start with Diana.
One of the most important things, I think, stands around recruiting. So the words that we use when we hire people. And specifically, I want to talk about the phrase or the term, the right person for the job. It's something that I used to fall for. It's an excuse for confirmation bias. I would hear it and say, okay, fair enough, I wasn't the right person for the job, or this person was not the right person for the job. But if we think about it, it's actually very subjective, because who decides who the right person for the job is? Especially for roles in leadership. These roles are usually harder to quantify, to measure the relevant experience for C-level roles, let's say. So what happens is usually the boards, the rest of the people on the board decide who they want to hire. And naturally, they want to hire someone who looks like them. That's why we see all these boards filled with middle-aged white men, to repeat the same question that you've probably, the same phrase that you've heard all the time, but it is true. And I think this is one of the reasons for it. It also makes recruiters' life really hard, I feel like, because they're being told, okay, we want the right person for the job, but the market is undersaturated. There's not enough people with experience. Now you have to find this unicorn, and you don't even know what he or she looks like. So yeah, I think rephrasing what we use for recruiting, removing maybe terms like pack leader, which are usually associated with tribal male positions, even removing terms like competitive environment can affect some women applying. And we also need to keep in mind that I think the percentages were 60% of men apply when they have met 60% of the criteria for a job, but women apply when they have met 100% of the criteria for a job. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, recruiting.
Flavilla.
She made so many good valid points, and I will just add up to what she said. But I think sometimes when you think about, I think about my own personal story. I come from oil and gas, fashion, and whatever I've learned from this environment that's helped me up. I think differently when I think about technology. So when you think about recruitment, you always think about terms of what are those transferable skills that people can come and bring in that they can apply to a new job, and sometimes that's where the attachment is. And as she mentioned, the fact that a lot of women don't apply unless they have 100% of the qualification is also one of the reasons why people might not, women will not put themselves forward for a situation. So again, something like the articulation of the words, and also I'm into brands, so I'm into very much into your brand culture. How does your company look like? I'm so glad to say that there's a great number of men and all age group who are here and are open to listen, but sometimes the difference, it's good to actually have men say, we're looking and how your company are brand advocates of, in terms of you recruiting and wanting talent. And this is not an exercise just for women to support one another. It's an exercise where all of us benefit from it. And I think sometimes we don't realize that I will focus on women because that's what I understand, but men should also focus in terms of what they can do to educate men to change or think differently. But yeah, from a recruitment point of view, definitely look in terms of what that brand culture looks like. Does that brand culture say that it's super inclusive and everybody can feel part of something, or is it just a place where everybody has to wear a suit, a blue suit, and come to work? But yes, some of the things that I would definitely change in terms of recruitment.
I was going to say, just talking about age there, I think that's a really important factor. I think people assume that all we're talking about here is bringing in the younger generation through and making sure we're focusing on diversity at that level, and actually we can create change at all levels. Rhiannon, you mentioned when we were doing some note-taking about today's talk about menopause policies and how that can help.
And I've got a couple of points that I'm going to add on to Diana's as well. But so the Centre for Digital Public Services Wales has just launched their period and menopause policy. And I think it's super, super important to think about those kind of things. There's all sorts of programmes to bring people in and programmes to support women to go up. But once they're there, what happens when women struggle because of periods and menopause. And I've got some stats, and I'm really sorry about, I'll try not to throw too many numbers, but there was a poll that was done in 2021. 99% of the women that were asked felt that going through the menopause had a negative impact on their careers. 59% had taken time off, 18% had said they'd taken more than 8 weeks off, and then a huge 12% had resigned as a result of going through the menopause and not feeling supported. And when women are kind of getting to the peak of their careers, a lot of people are going to get into senior roles when they're a bit older, and then they're also going through the menopause, having to deal with all perimenopause, in fact, all of the symptoms that come with that mean that they might not be able to work as many hours, or they might just need a break at a certain time of the day because they're tired, or there's so many things. And so having those really supportive policies in place that allow women that time, and not just, it might be that they don't need time, but they just need to know that they're supported, and if they need a moment, that's fine. And I think it's so, so important. And what was really interesting when my organisation tweeted about that is the amount of support that we got about how good it is, and people just not realising that it was necessary. So I think it's a really, really good thing to think about in our organisations if we don't have period and menopause policies. I just want to add very quickly onto Diana's point, the thing around 60% of men men applying for roles if they meet 60% of the criteria. One of the studies that I've read is around bullet points, and that we should remove bullet points from our job descriptions, because that's how they get this 60%. So women will tick off every single bullet point, and men won't. I have to say, I've applied for jobs where I was wholly or I felt wholly unqualified for the role and didn't meet any of the criteria, but I was successful anyway. But also not putting things into your job descriptions that just aren't necessary. Some of the tech roles that I've seen, they talk about all these qualifications you need and coding skills and various other things, and actually you don't need any of it. as you were saying about not being techie. So I think it's really, really important. And I have one final point. I'm so sorry. The talent pool being 17% of the talent pool, there's a talent pool of 17%. Arguably, as you said, Flavilla, it's all about transferable skills. So surely we've got 100% of the talent, like we've got 100% of women working in working who we could draw on if we just went and looked for those people and those transferable skills. So I'm going to argue against the 17% stat, that we should actually be looking a lot more broadly.
Excellent. Would you please hand that? Oh my goodness. Oh, don't lean forward. Barbara, well, again, we were speaking about you being my mum, but also you found that it's kind of it's a no win-win either way. So if you're a mum, you've got your own challenges. If you're not a mum, you've got your own kind of challenges to deal with there. Can you talk a little bit more?
Someone told me that if you're a woman until you're 40, you're not really considered, which I find it quite shocking at the time, but it was quite eye-opening, because they think up to 40 you can have kids, so you might just disappear. And after that you're kind of alright and can stay. But it's really hard, because I think there are people that decide not to have kids, and that's absolutely fine, and they get branded in one reason, then you have kids and you get branded for other reason. So I think, I'm always kind of half glass full, and I think the world is changing. We're talking about digital transformation, and digital, I think, if done properly, really can close the gap between business and technology, and actually get an organization together to serve the needs of a customer. And if you do this to what we said, it's not just, you don't just need to be coding. There's so many roles in technology that requires analytical skills, mathematical skills, but common sense, I think that should be a skills that people put in. Pragmatism, that should be in the CV. And people being able to see the biggest picture, the big picture. I think my challenge is sometimes, if you're really techie, you want to do the coolest thing on earth, and the customer doesn't care about it. And if you want to try and run an organization, you need to see the end-to-end picture and being able to do that. So I think if you look at most organization, the kind of bottom of the pyramid, I think usually it's 50-50. You can get quite a good. It's going up. So how do we support women going through the organization? There's working group, and again, I'd put kind of warning sign. I've been in leading the UK&I working group, and I felt I was just leading a therapy session where people just want to moan, and they look at you expecting to want to do everything from them, and that doesn't work. There's not a magic wand. People have to work together. I also seen women group where it's just like, we hate men, we just want to live in our own world. Again, that doesn't work. I live in a house with 3 men, so it's like, but I recognize that there is a need to coach both sides of the world in how to deal with special problems that you've mentioned, and how do we adapt to create we shouldn't even talk about men and women, but I guess a lot of tech systems or a lot of HR is we can only track men and female, and that's what we measure. But it's all about diversity. It's diversity of thinking, of background, and the ideas that you bring to the organization, and that's where I think we should really go for. So we talked about quota. It helps to kind of rock the boat and kind of give a bit of a sense of a baseline. But you don't want to be higher because you helped the 30% club, or because you helped this. You want to get higher because you can do your job and you can bring that. So it's how do we change the perception, and how do we really bring a balance between diversity and real inclusion, which is not, I've got a skirt and someone's got trousers. I think different. I grew up in a different country. I had to adapt to a different culture. I see things in a different way. I live, and that's, I think, how we can help each other.
Fantastic. Marie, have you got anything you'd like to add?
So I think in terms of what organizations can do to tackle this diversity issue. So I guess from a perspective of if you're organizing, conferences, so I've seen like events where if I go to the speakers page, and all the speakers are, all male. So instantly that will put off a lot of, women to submit their proposals. So one of the key things that an organization can do is make sure that they include, a diverse set of speakers as well, not just, from one perspective, but also from a lot of other perspective as well. So having that sort of inclusivity in a way that when a woman wants to speak about something during, a conference, if they see that, oh, there's a woman there, like maybe I can also, put my like proposal forward. So I think that is a key thing. The other maybe suggestion as well is, if make your like recruitment sort of policy, like make it so that it's also including, women engineers as part of like the hiring process. um there's a scenario in like my current workplace where apparently we've had a situation where most of the interviewers from our side were all male. So now we're trying to make it so that in each of the different interview stage, we have at least a diverse set of like different like representative, and not just from one sort of view. So I think having those like small steps, like collectively, it will like help massively as well.
Excellent. I think the day I have to queue at a female toilet at a tech industry event is the day change has really happened. It's the most exciting part of attending those events. You're in and you're out again. So let's all hope that in the future we can queue an event. That's the hope. Question 3. I would like to talk about this idea of there only being space for one person at the top. And I think it stems from this culture. And I think if you've been brought up or you've started your careers only seeing men in your environment, and you have one female leadership or one female C-level, and you can kind of take on this idea that, oh my goodness, if I want to get there, I either have to dethrone that one lady or I have to fight all the other women in the room to be the next person up there. How do we begin to break down this misconception that there isn't space for everyone at the top and there's a man's club up there? How do we begin to break that down? Who would like to go first?
It's very interesting because I'm full of anecdote. Yeah, so there's one that you always hear say that opportunities are like a slice of cake. I said no, actually it's not that. It's like a bakery. If you can't find bread today, come back tomorrow. Yes. If you go with that mindset, you will not be intimidated by the success of somebody else. And that's one thing, that's the approach I was always taking. And it's interesting because, for example, there's always been this myth around, black women don't support each other, blah, 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 and so forth. And I just think in terms of what I've achieved, for the community that I've created, that would have never happened if it wasn't for the support of the black women, but also all the men. Yes, because we always say that men don't support, but men actually also support the allies that we talk about are there to support us. So I think it's about start with those stories that we tell, and how do we really make it easy people to understand that it's not because she has that spot that you can't have it when your time comes. I mean, if you're patient and your time will come, it will come. And if it's not there, then something else will come. If you are a talented individual, something else will come. And I think I've taken that approach, and we've created an environment where we're not intimidated, and creating an environment where people are not intimidated by somebody else, actually use their power and support them and acknowledge their achievement. That's how you win. People know me personally, I'm very mindfulness-wise, I'm strong on energy. You get what you put out there. If you're negative energy, you're only going to get bad stuff. If you're good energy, things happen to you, and manifest it. But that's me. I don't know everybody else.
That's really interesting, and I'm just going to name drop him because he's given me a lot of advice over the years, so he has been an ally to me. Chris Dunkley gave me some advice. He's a colleague of ours, and he said there's not only one way to open a door. You can knock, you can ask a friend on the other side to let you in, you can try and convince the gatekeeper, you can break a window. There are other ways to look at it. So if you're confronted by a door and you can't unlock it, look around. And I love the bakery analogy. That was such a good one.
Can I just add something else I wanted to add, sorry, because you just remind me. It's so funny. I was talking to one of the black female director at Deutsche Bank, I cannot pronounce this, and she said to me, there's a group of people from the company who applied for this role, and it was about 3 or 4 CVs, and 2 of them, they knew who they were, and 2 of them, they had no idea. If your name is not known within the people who are making decision, not going to get the job. They're going to choose those people who have spent a lot of time building this relationship. And I was talking early on, I said, like, what are you doing with your lunch? Are you watching Netflix, or are you having a conversation with somebody else from another department? And I wish I knew all these things when I was employed. I would have spent a lot of time more having conversation and be very vocal of what I wanted. So when I'm not in the room, somebody's talking on my behalf. And I've done that now, and that's what happens. People recommend me a lot for things like, you need to have Flavilla on this project. And so really think in terms of how, strategic you are, and to make sure that people recognize and not going to wait for you to give you what you want. Be vocal. This is what I want. This is what I want to get. And I always say to people, like, if you want 70K, ask for 100. Yeah, that's my thing.
Considering Maria isn't actually in the room, but she managed to fight her way in digitally, what can you add to this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Flavilla said around, you just, aim for what you want. That's, what I've done when I was starting to, make myself more available in terms of building my personal brand. Because I've been, doing testing for like 5-6 years, and I've never attended once, any meetups. I wasn't very active in the community. And then it was in 2018, so I actually did my first Women in Tech event at ECS. And I just, like, during that time, I just felt like, oh, like, I don't think I can do this, because I'm someone who's very sort of shy in terms of speaking. Like, I really had to build a lot of my confidence, but at the end, I think it really paid off, because it opened the doors for other opportunities. So the year after that, I spoke at one of my biggest conference, the Women of Silicon Roundabout. And then a few years after that, I really started to get involved in, doing all the meetups. And like, some of these opportunities, they're not gonna make themselves just like, appear like magic. Like, you really have to, reach out to someone, even if it's uncomfortable, just do it. What I've done personally was, when I wanted to speak up to various meetup events, because I know that I have something to share, I was sending like messages to various meetup organizers, see if, they're looking for like first time speakers, see if, there's a space for me there. And then that eventually led to, even if I'm not looking for any events, like the meetup organizers, they just reach out to me now. And it's such a, great feeling to be, appreciated in that way. So, yep, just, go for it. Even though it's uncomfortable, it really does pay off. And there's a lot more opportunities after that will just keep on like knocking. Yeah.
So has anyone here experienced a feeling of rivalry against people who perhaps are considered within their own group? So either against another woman, another black woman, another Italian. Is there ever been that feeling of competition? How is it that you've dealt with that? Or from a leadership position, how have you seen it in your team? How have you managed to help people navigate that?
This is what I kind of reflected is, and this would be my advice. I think you need to try and have a conversation with yourself on what do you want to prove and what you're trying to prove. I was listening to a podcast about a guy who's coaching people to go to the Olympics, and if someone goes to him and he says, so what you're trying to achieve, and the person said, I want to win a gold medal, he just said, well, then we should stop now, because the likelihood of that to happen is very small. There's only going to be one person, and if you don't win it, what's going to happen to you? So find the goals, and I think if you find the goals with yourself or what you're trying to prove, then I think it's about you yourself, and you're happy with yourself in the position, regardless the job you're going to get. If you're always in I want to get there, and there's only one space, and you don't get it for good reason sometimes, then you're always going to be bitter. It's always going to be about you and about someone else. And I think that's where, I'd say, the ego sometimes comes in, and that's where, there's a reason why there's no I in team. And I think that, for me, is quite important. And I think if you can see that with yourself, then you build a community and you want to support people. And I think for some of you that have read probably the James Kerr book about legacy, about the All Blacks, they talk about leaving the jersey in a better place. So you're in a team at that time, and it's not just about you doing a job, but it's also doing something for the team, for the people coming after you. And I think that's as well what we're trying to do. I think, you know, when I went on maternity leave 14 years ago and 12 years ago was one thing, and now seeing that people can go, and there's a lot of men that go, which actually a lot of people have come back and say, oh God, I'm realizing about much more what my wife was doing, and what, you know, I think I'll be a better manager when I come back because I can understand much more. I think that's really important. So building a community, building a team spirit, I think that's how we create better environments.
So on the competition thing, I have had a couple of terrible female managers, and part of that, I think, was because they were very competitive and they found it very difficult to see another someone who potentially could be very successful and was ambitious, because they had that thing where it's like, well, I've got this one spot, so we've got this queen bee thing and dethroning, and that's it's just nonsense. And I think, one, if you're in an environment where you feel like there's a culture where there is one spot, whether you're woman, whether you're non-white, whether you're gay, whatever it is, well, then probably find another organisation if that's what you feel is the case. But when it's come to this like competitive thing, like I've decided I'm not going to be one of those women, and I want to support, as you said, like support people who are behind me coming up to senior roles, because it's just the worst feeling having someone who you hope will be an ally and a supporter putting you down constantly and treating you differently. And I just never want to be that person. Or you have people who are super supportive until you're at their level, and then somehow it turns in the other direction and they start sort of pushing you down. It's such a strange place to be. I was at a round table event where I was asked to talk about diversity in tech, and there was a woman on my table who said, I found it really, really hard to get to where I am, so why should I support other women getting here too? And I just thought it was such a backwards way of looking at it, and I think exactly the opposite. So I would just encourage other women or whatever sort of group you're in to support those who are coming up behind you, because that's what's really important. And the competitiveness is just madness. You'll find your space and or make your space. If there is only one slot, well, convince someone there should be two.
I'd also like to don't just support them when they're doing well. And I think there's huge drive. If you think there is only one space at the top, there's this underdog feeling that someone's rising from the ashes and everyone has to support them, and they make one mistake and suddenly it's like, well, they tried their best, you know, next one can come through in 10 years' time. And I think it's making sure that people feel that they have the space to learn, to grow, and they've got that support, that even if it doesn't go well the whole way, because we afford the same mistakes to men, we afford the same mistakes to those. I'm sure that most people here have had a few accidents within their careers, but you're still here today. And so I think it's not only supporting when people are doing well, but also that when they're not doing so well, and seeing how you can enable them to keep going. Did you want to add anything, Diana, or should we jump on to the next? Yeah, go for it.
I agree with everything that you've said, ladies, and I just want to add to Rhiannon's point. If you're gonna be competitive, turn it to it sounds silly and toxic, but it's not, if you don't take it too much further. This girls versus boys or women versus men, if you're gonna be competitive, just think, okay, let's do it. Let's do a guys versus ladies team and support your other female colleagues. But don't turn it into women are better than men or men are better than women, of course.
No, I think it's a fantastic point to end on it. This isn't a war. There is a space for everyone, as we're trying to establish, and I think unfortunately it's a myth and it's a misconception that for whatever reason we've continued this narrative. It scares the crap out of me every time.
Somebody doing well in my environment, I'll say, tell me how you did it, so I can learn from you. And then, and when, as I say that, it's about that, recognize your own strength and where you are. Your competition is only you, nobody else. When you say you're going to wake up and exercise and you don't do it, that's you, that's nobody else.
And when someone asks you, how's your day going? How's your week going? Give them a good answer. Don't just say, okay, move on. Yeah, if you've had a good week, tell them. Celebrate the things that you're doing and make people, again, people don't know your name and they don't know what you're up to. How can they promote you?
But also, tell people when you're having a rubbish week.
Also,
because we don't all have to be superheroes all the time. We don't all have to be constantly on our best game. And I think sometimes, particularly as women and then as mums as well, I think we try so hard to be on the our best behaviour, and we've done everything, and we've also cooked an amazing meal, and we're about to go and look after our parents, and we're going to go and all these things, and charity events and whatever else. And I think sometimes you can just say, actually, everything's a bit rubbish and I've not achieved anything this week, and that's cool too.
Absolutely. So moving on to another question. Why are allyships and support groups so important when achieving change? And do you have any examples when an allyship benefited you or a team that you were involved in? Who would like to start? So I can pick on someone. Flavilla?
It's funny, and I'll tell you a story actually. So when I made my entry into the tech space, and I realized there was not enough black women or women in general, I just thought, and my thing is because I'm a strategic just by nature, so I just thought, okay, who is the most influential white man here I can work with? That was literally my mindset. And then I went to an event, so my client invited me to an event. Said, Flavilla, come to this event, it's £100. And I say, I don't know if I want to spend £100. I can spend £100 at Nobu. I want to spend £100 with a rubbish networking event. And I'm glad I went, because you're going to meet this guy, his name is called Rush Show, there's this thing called Tech London Advocates. I said, okay, cool. And he was talking, at that time, he was already talking about the lack of talent before obviously COVID. And he was saying, yeah, there's going to be a lack of talent, and so forth. And obviously what he said really happened even sooner. And so when I went to his events, and I said, wow, okay, so there's still not women, or there's still not black women. And I looked at him, I was like, what's going on? And he looked, and when you can look into someone's eyes, like, I need you, but I don't know how to do this. I said, don't worry, I'm going to take care of this. And then, so I launched Black Women in Tech in the back of that. And every day for the first 30 days, every day I was presenting one black woman on our social media. We literally grew to 10,000 with no budget, just by the power of social media. What was important about this is that I knew that he was able to be in a room when I couldn't be. And he was also an advocate for myself, and that was super important. It was not just any random, and I wasn't utilizing him as you may think. It was just about, we're both going to win from this, because you're going to be able to do what you can't do, because they recognize I'm a black woman and you're not one, so I know exactly how to address to them. And on the other side, you can have conversation with men who maybe don't have that understanding, and then get them to understand this. And the thing about just this book, in the back of that, obviously growing the community, and you've probably seen it in your library, The Voices in the Shadow, that tells the stories of 51 black women in technology that have done amazing things, whether they come from rich or poor background, have done really, really well. It was about that. It was about just having, when I did this, it was about just sharing the narrative, but also showcasing positive narrative. But behind that, when this book was self-funded for sponsorship, it was not only black women who supported it, but also men who supported this. And they used a position of power to influence others. So when you think about, that's the thing, when I think about diversity, inclusion, or equity, I don't think about this is me versus men, yeah. It's about us together. How can we utilize our power to help and create an environment that supports one another? And when I hire, from an agency point of view, when I hired my first commercial director, he was a blonde, blue eyes, and he said to me, well, you're a beautiful black woman, so you can use your power in a different way that I'm going to use it. I'm going to be sitting in these cigar rooms, and I'm going to use my power. It's about how we're utilizing each other's power for the same goal. And if you think about it, diversity is not an act of kindness, it's good business. The more diverse you are, the better you can attract more business for your enterprise. So that's how I've used diversity, allyship, and it's so powerful.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Well, go on. You go next, Barbara? Or nope?
So I'm with you on finding the powerful white man. I think it's a very handy thing to
very quickly
find.
here. Can you raise your hand, please, if you're the powerful white man in the room? And
I'll find you afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really helps. And I've had some incredible allies. And I was thinking about it this morning. A couple of friends messaged me and said, thank you for being an amazing woman. And I realised that there were people that have been allies that I didn't realise were allies. And people who, when I was more junior in my career, were very, very supportive. And I think we often look for the powerful one who's been really supportive. So I think we need to recognise the people lower down as well who've been really supportive in different ways. But there's been two people in particular who have, at all points in my career, just been so supportive. One is a friend's dad, Chris Murray. He is someone who, whenever I have something that I say, I'm about to go into this role, or I'm applying for this thing, or I'm in this situation, he says, there's someone I can point you to for that. And he will introduce me to them, and not just send an email, but take me to see them and tell them it's that advocating for other people. I know he talks about me when I'm not there and says, this person can do this for you, and he's opened many doors for me, and it's been amazing. But also more recently, my most recent manager, Chris Ferguson, there were a number of times, it doesn't seem to matter how senior I got, I was never senior enough to be in a room, which makes me think that it was because I was a woman. And there's been a few times where they've said that they need you here, and he's gone, no, absolutely not, I'm not coming. And I think that's been enough. That was the allyship I needed. I needed him to say, no, you're good enough to go into that room and speak up. And that was very, very powerful as well. So yeah, I think so helpful to have allies around you, both in men, women, and everything in between. I think sometimes people don't realise how powerful it can be.
Fantastic. Diana, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so first I agree that having allies is really important, probably the most important thing that you could do just as an individual, but also as a business. And a few ideas, if you're a business, how you can be an ally for your employees is by creating support groups and creating teams that focus on diversity and inclusion, let's say. And not just creating these teams and these groups, but also supporting them and showing people that you really care by allocating budget and time and giving them a platform, and providing training for these people, training especially for managers. It's really important that managers know how to communicate with their direct reports. Other things that businesses can do are creating events, and at ECS we are trying to do it. I'm going to plug the diversity and inclusion group that I'm part of here, because we've been working for over a year to make the environment a bit more diverse and a bit more inclusive. We have a gazette that we send monthly that celebrates different events from different parts of the world. We have communication channels. We have a Slack channel where people can ask questions or share their maybe their problems without feeling like they're being judged. Yeah, I think being an ally as an individual is very important, but also as a business, as a company, showing your employees that you are their ally. And again, one of the best ways to do that is to just promote your high performers, give them salary raises, give them the opportunity to progress, tell them, hey, there's this opening, do you want it? Don't just wait for them to ask you for a promotion.
I think that's a really interesting point. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it was talking about this idea that men are much more forthcoming about asking for pay rises, much more forthcoming about asking for bonuses, and there's a lot of data to support that. So as a manager, you know this information, right? And if you find that every time you're talking about pay, it's with a man in the room, maybe consider starting that conversation with your female colleagues. So if you know they're not as forthcoming coming forward, why not introduce that conversation and help them along the way? And if you are aware that there is a pay gap and you have the ability to do something about that, and it's the same characteristics and it's the same job, etc., and you can offer that argument, do it. That's what being a leader is, and that's you're being an ally to the people in your team. Yeah. Marie, would you like to add anything onto the end of that?
Yeah, I think just from personal like point of view, like having allies and also being an ally, it's it's done wonders like for both sides. So I've mentioned a while ago that when I was starting out in public speaking, there were a couple of men like who really helped me achieve what I've achieved like the past couple of years. So just to name drop a few, Billy, Ash, and Marco. So if you're all watching this, then yeah, really thank you so much because you've all helped me, with all the meetups that we've done. And at the same time, when I wanted to participate in like testing conferences. So there's a really big testing community out there. So with the testing community, everyone is like really supportive. What's great as well is all the women testers, they are always very vocal and also amplifying the other like women's voices. So it's not just all about celebrating the men's successes, but celebrating like women's successes as well. And I think as a community, we've done really well around that. And I think having a really great manager who's very supportive, who basically gives you or makes you aware of all the opportunities out there, it's really helpful. And I've been fortunate to have had managers in my previous company as well as in my current company that's really helped and like believe in me so I can be where I want now. And to return that, so I've also been playing the part of an ally, so celebrating women's successes as well. If for example there's an event that I can do, rather than just saying no, I can also say that, oh, why don't you reach out to to these fellow women, because they would also be able to give some great insight. So just giving these specific examples, I think even though it's a small thing from your side, it can really mean something big to the other person.
Absolutely. And talking about managers, I think it is worth noting Roy Suji, who is my manager and also manages Louise and Emma, so a team of women, poor guy. And he has been just super supportive, and I think we can all agree that when Sarah Everard happened, the first thing he did was go, are you guys okay? Is there something extra that I can be doing to making you feel more supported at work or safer at work? He's listened to us talk about stomach cramps when we're on our periods and other stuff that comes up in everyday life for women. And so big thank you, I think, for being an ally for us professionally, but also checking on us as things happen. Right, that is all the big questions. I think what we'd love to hear from you is if there is one piece of advice you could give to our listeners today around taking action for equality, what would it be? And let's start with Marie.
I'm still thinking.
Oh, we can.
Okay. I think if there's really one thing, break down your camouflage. So I attended the Women of Silicon Roundabout this year, and one of the talk that really stuck with me is this talk by a woman named Jen. I forgot her last name, but it's really about taking off your camouflage. And when I was first starting in tech, in order for me to sort of um, try to get involved with the conversations like during lunch, because like I was always like the only woman, and during lunchtime the conversation was always about things that would men like to discuss, such as football or any other things. Like I sort of just pretended that, oh yeah, that's really interesting, like try to just try to pretend. So I have this camouflage on, but like I've realized that just embrace like your own self, take off your camouflage if you are this type of person, or if you're like girly or like something else. Like just don't worry about it and just be your true unique self. Grab any like opportunities that come your way, but at the same time you also need to do something on your part. Like you can't just wait for these small opportunities to come to you, so you just have to grab it, see, and yeah, see where that really leads you in the end. So hopefully if there's any women out there who's I guess, quite reserved or quite scared to put themselves out there, it's not as scary, and there's gonna be a lot of women who's gonna be supporting you in your own like professional and personal journey as well. So hopefully that was, yeah, useful.
I don't know where the microphone went. Perfect. So I reckon we just go down the row in order. There we go.
Cool. One of the advice for me is to just be an ally. I think that is the easiest thing that you can do as an individual. Be an ally, speak up for yourself and for other people when you see an injustice or when you witness harassment. Stand up for yourself and for other people, and just embody empowerment, not just talk about it, but actually take action when you see fit. And also when there's something that you want, speak up about it as well. Don't just wait for, as Marie said, don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Just make your wishes known to your peers. If you want to be a team lead, say that, hey, I want to be a team lead. Speak to your manager. Yeah, speak up and be an ally.
Now what has been said. For me, I would probably say something that is as much applicable to men and women. I would say that being good at what you do, even as a business or as an individual, is no longer enough. You know, what is the change that you want to see within your environment? What is the change that you want to see within your space that you can influence? And if you can do that, you know, just one thing, then you can make a big difference. But my word would be invest. Invest. I'm not saying just the stock market or crypto. I'm saying invest in yourself. So invest in learning and always developing new skills. And whatever you have, you know, we sometimes take for granted that all the knowledge that we have is the same for everybody else. That's why I spend a lot of time sharing, you know, everything that I learn, because you never know who else might be inspired by your journey, especially your journey. Sometimes we don't take a step back and write your story. You'd be surprised how much you've accomplished, and really it's a good way as well to see your own self-worth and really see your value, because sometimes you know, if you're not around the right people who appreciate what you have, somebody else will be able to see it better. It's a bit like a personal relationship. Anyway, so yes, also I say invest in relationship, invest in people that you care about, invest in not just looking for what you can get, but also what can you give back. You know, they say allyship, and also, you know, allyship as, you know, I have a power, can I use it to help somebody else? And also, you know, the relationship that you need to build, whatever it is, your tagline manager, your co-workers, or somebody within another department, your personal brand. Trust me, your personal brand will take you further. If you can do that, you are a long way ahead of everybody else. And yes, and probably the last part of advice around invest is, yeah, invest in looking for my train of thoughts, which are terrible. Yes, I think that's really it. Just invest in stock market. That's it.
I'd say probably something that someone told me: don't be a woman. So I was going for a role, and I said, "Oh, I read the job description, and I'm not really sure." And it just said, "Don't be a woman, just go for it." So I said, "Just be yourself and go for it. Don't be afraid of fail. There's no such failure. There's learning. So if you know, even if you don't get the role you've gone for or the opportunity, at least your name is there. Next time it'll be mentioned." So just for me is that, and don't conform. Just, you'll regret it. You can't keep wearing the camouflage. If it rains, it's gonna go off, and it'll be much easier if you be yourself. And I think in the longer term, you'll be recognized for what you are and what you can bring, and it's much more powerful.
So be more women now. Yeah.
Lots of really good points already made, and now I feel a bit stuck. But I think my tip, and this is on an individual level, I think sometimes you need to be the first. So one of my very good friends said to me, when she said she couldn't see anyone above her that looked like her, and so what does she have to change in herself to kind of conform with what was above her? And I said, I don't think you do. Maybe it's you have to push yourself forward now and be the person that other people see above you. And I think that's hard and it's scary, but sometimes you have to be the one who is the one in the pink and the flowers, or the one who's wearing your cultural dress, or the one who is the different person that others will look up to in the future. And I think that is, like I said, scary, but worth it. And will support those behind us.
Yeah, and that doesn't just extend to women, right? You could be the first man to take maternity leave at work, knowing that that might be a bit of a taboo subject still, but actually that you might find that other men follow. So fantastic. We can do a round of applause now, I think, just to say thank you very, very much. It's now over to you as an audience. Hopefully you've been saving a few questions. I'm actually going to quickly ask Emma, who has been keeping an eye on YouTube for us. Has there been any questions come through? Oh, come on YouTube. Anyone within?
So eloquent.
That's what it is. We've covered everything. That's what. Is there anything anyone else would like to ask? Greg, we're going to throw you the big orange cube, which is really good fun. There you go.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So representing the pale, stale, and male here, you gave some examples of the negative experience you've had. And I wonder for some of my younger colleagues, what have you had an experience where it's positive, where another person in the room stood up or helped handle the position? Because I think, you know, we need some guidance for those people who haven't maybe been brought up the right way or have had the experience, right? I mean, that's some of it's just plain ignorance. So maybe if you had an example you could share.
Absolutely.
There's a positive.
Mine's going to be super quick, and it's just jumping on what Rhiannon said. I had a male colleague say, I don't need to be in the room, Ellie's got it. And that immediately made me feel more confident in myself and my abilities, and that I knew that he trusted me, and that automatically gave me a boost, and that was a really valuable thing for me.
I've had an amazing experience with a delivery manager. I think delivery managers are worth their weight in gold. Who the women in the room kept being spoken over, and eventually he said, like he raised it very like directly and said, "You've got to stop doing this. Like, stop talking over the women in the room," because it was only happening with the women, and it did. And I think sometimes like shocking people out of it, they might even not know they were doing it, and like him saying that was just great. And it actually changed, I think, how a lot of meetings going forward went, and I think that was a really positive thing. So that's part of the like challenging bad behaviour. I've been in a lot of situations where bad behaviour has been challenged, and it makes you feel a lot more confident.
Anyone else would like to?
So one thing I want to say, I actually think there's much more positive examples of men supporting women, but unfortunately it's like newspaper headlines. You just need one to be bad that actually overshadow everything else. So, you know, I'm positive on how things are changing, and I think there are much more people standing up. But I think calling it out is what actually, you do it once and it doesn't happen again.
You know, you made a valid point. Actually, there's more good men than they have bad men. They always remember the bad ones. So I feel sorry for you guys. So maybe we should do something about men actually doing some great stuff out there. So shine a light as well on the great ones. But yeah, yes, it's true. It's quite often ignorance of, you know, unconscious ignorance or voluntary ignorance. But sometimes you say to people, just, you know, a suggestion of good books to read, you know, so people need to understand from point of view what they're doing wrong, and again, as you say yourself, it's complete ignorance. I mean, so many people stood out for me, and in a vocal way, as you mentioned, or just step aside and, you know, take somebody on the side and say, yeah, hey, you know what you just did? That was very hurtful to someone. But, you know, and again, as I say, I focus on women, and it's having those allies who focus on other men and say, you know what, let me take you on the side, what you did like that, you think that was funny, but it wasn't funny. But if that's something that you could do straight away, don't let it pile up, because if you wait and you let it pile up, that's when it explode, and, you know, might have another world war. There you go.
My example is it might sound silly, but it's not. It's actually noticing the temperature in a room, especially in the office. I used to work in an office that was really, really cold, even for some men. And it was just nice seeing another man, a man walk in and instantly notice that the women were freezing and asking for the AC to be turned up a bit or off.
Yeah. Nice. Marie, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's just really calling out the behavior, because I've had an experience before where someone was making me uncomfortable. So what I've done was I just spoke to someone about it. There were also other people who like put themselves forward. So I think because we all came together as one, and we spoke out about this uncomfortable behavior. This person was sort of, like they explained why his behavior was sort of uncomfortable and not okay in a workplace where there's women. So I think, yeah, companies just need to continue listening to their like employees, whether it's men or women, or just so that we all feel heard, and yeah, we all feel seen, that yeah, if we raise something, then this can be taken into actual consideration.
I'd also add to that, something you can do is believe women. So if they're coming to you with an issue, rather than trying to solve the issue in that moment for them, or tell them how they should be feeling, or excusing the behaviour, believe them and try and offer support to try and resolve that issue. It's something that is a really positive thing.
Just add something. You may remind me when I was employed, and I remember I had an issue with one of my direct team member, and I wanted him to go and speak to them. Say, if I do that, I make you lose your power. I can guide you in terms of what to say, but it has to be you address this conversation. And you see, sometimes we might not feel comfortable to go and talk to that person directly, but sometimes, good part of being also a supporter, say like, I can guide you in terms of maybe that's how you could address this conversation if you're not too sure in terms of how you're doing it.
Yeah.
We've actually lose yourself, losing your power.
Yeah.
Just come down actually more powerful.
And sometimes if don't wait for the senior person to email you, reply to the first email. Is also very, very helpful, because occasionally I've had to be like, wait, please can you chase up for me, because I've tried 10 times and had nothing, and he gets a reply on the first email, and that can be incredibly frustrating. So it can be very helpful to female colleagues to reply to their emails first without needing a male follow-up. Any other questions from the audience? Yes?
Talked about teamwork and diversity is the wider team. Actually, when I've worked in teams, most of us work in teams all the time, it's that diversity is looking for something different that comes in there. And quite often we miss that personal emotion in actually making it there, and being different and being able to personally bring that emotion, excitement to that, is actually one of the strongest attributes I've seen from that mixed team, including female, including others, that actually I didn't quite see come out from the general comments about how to stand up for yourself, be there, express those. You actually contribute something in your own merit by being different,
Yeah.
and helping that emotion come through. Because males are terrible, they're reserved. They follow the pack, what's going on. They're very good at following that. Actually, females normally discern something far faster and express that. So all I would say is, use your emotion in those team building, team playing parts to actually make a difference.
I wouldn't say it was a question, but it was a very, very good comment. No, and I think that's a really interesting point you raised, because there's again a lot of research that to be a good leader you need to be strong and aggressive, and all these wonderfully male traits. And actually, I think if any, the COVID proved that actually a lot of female leaders around the world did a tremendous job leading their countries through one of the worst pandemics of our modern history. And actually, should we be still striving to look for aggression and male traits, or should we actually be trying to look at for a more emotional, more empathy, more notoriously female traits? Give me the microphone.
Branded passionate a lot of time, but I just said I'm Italian, so that's all.
So I think I don't think we need to be stoic and strong in all of those male traits. Some of the feedback I've had most from my female colleagues is that they appreciate it when I share my weaknesses, or things that I perceive as weaknesses, because then they feel like they can also share theirs. But one of the things that I also want to kind of avoid is that like being emotional thing, because emotional, the word I think has certain connotations. Absolutely, yes, I completely agree. And yeah,
emotion itself is a attribute of something.
definitely. And so I think men can be emotional, and we all have different emotions. But I think sometimes the word emotion is given to women, and perhaps we need to, I don't know what word we use instead, but definitely like the softer side of things is positive, and if that comes naturally to you and that's what you're good at, then do it, whether you're male or female. I have been criticised by other leaders for being too sensitive or being too touchy-feely, and I spent time during COVID speaking to my team in the evenings, the ones I knew lived on their own, or calling them at the weekends, or checking in on their kids, or all of those things, because actually that to me was more important at that moment than the work. And the work got done, and I knew it was going to get done, but I needed to know that at the end of all this, they were still going to be okay. And that's what I'm good at bringing that emotion. I don't know whether that's because I'm a woman or because that's just who I am, but I think it can be really important. And I also told them when I was really struggling, and when I needed to go to the doctors because I was stressed, or and all of those, being open with everybody about how you're feeling, I think is really important.
So I had an exit interview once, and during said exit interview, they gave me some feedback, and some of the feedback they gave me was that I was headstrong, I was opinionated, and that I wanted to go places, and I was smiling, and I don't think he was expecting me to smile, and he goes, "Ellie, why are you smiling? This is criticism." And I was like, "No, mate, everything you just said is a positive. I'm going to take this forward and have a career, And I just think it is an interesting point that, again, a lot of men might be applauded for being opinionated or headstrong or trying to move forward. And I was being asked in that moment to be more of a woman. And I felt like I am a woman, and that just happens to be the traits that I have. And if you're not going to respect me in my high heels and my beautiful earrings, you're not going to respect me in a suit. So it doesn't matter. I've just got to come and be more me. I think we have time for one more question, if there's any more from the room. Yes.
Thanks everyone on the panel today. It's been inspirational. I was wondering if you'd be able to share maybe like a career defining moment. It's maybe quite personal, so please don't feel you have to, but just to kind of, inspire that next generation.
I'll probably start with a comic one. This is where communication breaks down in your family, where my husband went out for the evening. That's what I thought. He actually told me he went to Netherlands for the night. So I went to bed, I woke up in the morning, he was in there, and I realized I had to be in the office by 8:30, and I had to take the kids to school. So panic. And then thank God for Uber. So I just like, kids, exciting. So I called an Uber, put the kids in a cab, followed them to make sure they were arriving to school, and in the meantime go to. So that's the beauty of juggling. I could have gone and said it was a disaster. I turn it around as that's what you got to do.
It's interesting because Flavilla by itself is actually a butterfly. So I believe that you don't have to have one career, so you can have as many careers as you want. And I think I'm on my third career, and God knows what I'm going to be doing next. I might see me in the film industry, not as an actress whatsoever, but behind the scene. I think one of my moment of my career was I probably spent too much time on Twitter, and I was on Twitter, and I was on BBC News Channel. It was a little black girl who had created an app. We always take for granted that kids take 5 minutes to get to school. Yeah, some kids in Africa take 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, they definitely do the 10,000 step every day compared to me. And she created this little app that really helped kids find their way back home. I thought it was so brilliant, and that's when I realized that's who I want to work with. People who are able to make a scalable impact. And for me, it was not just about the money or what I could do with my agency. It was about I'm seeing people who are able to see problems, not only complain about it, but actually find a solution behind it. And that's what got me excited about those disruptors. Like, what, this is not right. Those norms are defective. I want to work alongside you. I want to be behind the development of those great brands. So that was a great moment for me. And I think being surrounded by those people made you realize that, again, something we are very much accustomed to. That's how life is. Those people think like, no, that's life is not okay. I'm going to change this. And when you have that mindset, you don't longer wait for representation, which is quite often when people fall off. Like, if I don't see somebody like me, and you remember what she said, like being the first, maybe that, like, if it's not being done, maybe I'm going to be the one who's going to be doing it. And that mindset has completely changed the way I think, because I was living in a mirror of projection that the world was telling me what I was capable of doing, especially when I was in Paris. I was meant to be just an assistant. Now I can just think I can be whatever I want to be, as long as I put the work into it. So the leap of faith scares you a lot, but trust me, there's so much beauty in doing that. So that's for me. I hope I answered your question.
So we are unfortunately on time. You've got the microphone in your hand. Did you have something quick that you'd like to add, or?
I can stop here if on.
Diana will still be in the room though, so if you'd like to go and have a chat afterwards. Just wow, right? What a phenomenal afternoon. Behind the scenes, we've been very excited about this for a few months. For everyone else, it's probably only been a few weeks. But I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone, including Marie. We hope you feel better soon, for being with us today. So just a round of applause for you first. You're very welcome. I also want to give my thanks to Patrick and James for helping with the tech support, for everyone else behind the scenes, Martina, Jackie, who can't be with us today. We've got Emma, who's been running around like a headless chicken all morning, Louise, the list goes on. And a big, big thank you. Without you, this wouldn't have happened today. Also to ECS for letting us use their phenomenal London office. Before you go, do take a photo of the bridge. That's why we bought the office. The recording of today's talk will be available on YouTube, so if you want to recap on anything or like to share it to the wider world, please do. We will also evolve it into a podcast, and that will sit within the TechQ podcast platform, which is a podcast that we run at ECS, and it looks at tools, technology, and people. So what we like to call the 3 areas of tech. If you've enjoyed the talk, please tag us on social media. We are ECS, and let us know what you learned and perhaps what actions you would like to take forward to help break the bias and take action for equality. Until next time, thank you very much.